February 1959, the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia. 9 experienced hikers set out on an expedition that should have been routine. None of them would return alive. What happened on that frozen mountain became one of history's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. A case so strange that even after decades of investigation, the truth remains buried in snow and secrecy. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student with years of hiking experience. His team consisted of 8 others, all seasoned adventurers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. The youngest was 20. The oldest was 37. Their mission was simple: reach Otorten Mountain, a challenging but achievable trek in the northern Urals. For these skilled hikers, it was supposed to be an adventure worth bragging about. On January 27th, they boarded a train, their spirits high, their packs loaded with supplies for a 2-week journey. By January 28th, they had reached Ivdol, a remote settlement on the edge of civilization. One member, Yuri Yudin, turned back early due to illness. He would be the only survivor, not by luck but by absence. The remaining 9 pressed forward into the wilderness. They left their last communication on January 31st, promising to send a telegram once they returned. The expected date, February 12th. February 12th came and went. No telegram arrived. At first, no one panicked. Delays were common in such expeditions. But as days turned into a week, concern grew into alarm. On February 20th, search and rescue teams were dispatched. Volunteers, police, and military personnel combed the snow-covered mountains. What they were about to discover would haunt them forever. On February 26th, they found the tent. It stood on the slopes of Kolit Cycle, a name that translates to Dead Mountain in the local Mansi language. An ominous coincidence. But it wasn't the location that shocked the searchers. It was the condition of the tent. It had been torn open from the inside. Deep, violent slashes cut through the fabric, as if the hikers had clawed their way out in desperate panic. Boots, warm clothing, and supplies, everything needed for survival, remained neatly inside. The scene made no sense. Why would experienced hikers flee into sub-zero temperatures without their gear? Footprints led down the slope toward a nearby forest. Some barefoot, some in socks, all heading away from the tent in a chaotic exodus. The first 2 bodies were found near the tree line, under a large cedar tree. Yuri Krivonischenko and Yuri Doroshenko, both dressed in only underwear, frozen to death. Branches above them were broken, suggesting someone had climbed the tree, perhaps to see something or to escape something. A small fire had been lit at the base of the tree, but it had long since died out. Search teams followed the footprints back toward the tent. 3 more bodies were found along the path: Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin. They appear to have been attempting to return to the tent, but collapsed from hypothermia. 5 bodies were still missing. 2 months passed. Spring began to thaw the mountain's grip. In May, the final 4 bodies were discovered in a ravine, buried under 4 meters of snow. But these deaths were different, disturbingly different. Ludmila Dubinina's tongue and eyes were missing. Semyon Zolotaryov had severe chest trauma, ribs fractured with such force it was compared to a car crash. Alexander Kolevatov had skull damage. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol's skull was fractured, yet their clothing showed no external damage. No cuts, no tears, no signs of a struggle. The bodies appear to have been crushed by an immense internal force. Even stranger, some of their clothing was found to be radioactive. The Soviet authorities launched an official investigation. Medical examiners, forensic specialists, and military personnel examined every detail. The lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, noted the peculiar injuries. The force required to cause such trauma without external wounds was extraordinary, like being struck by a car or caught in a blast wave. But there was no evidence of an explosion, no vehicle tracks, no signs of an attack. Autopsies revealed that the victims had not been under the influence of alcohol. Their last meal was digested normally, suggesting the incident occurred hours after they had eaten. The official conclusion, released in May 1959, was as unsatisfying as it was cryptic. The deaths were caused by a compelling natural force. What force? The report didn't say. The case was closed. The files were sealed. The area was declared forbidden for 3 years. For decades, theories multiplied in the absence of answers. What could drive 9 experienced hikers to flee into deadly cold without their gear? What could cause such catastrophic injuries without external damage? Avalanche? Possible, but the tent was still standing and the slope's angle was too gentle for a typical avalanche. Still, some experts believe a rare type of delayed slab avalanche could explain the panic and the crushing injuries found in the ravine. Military testing? The region was near Soviet military installations. Some theorized a secret weapons test, perhaps a rocket or parachute mine, went wrong. This would explain the radiation, the injuries, and the government's swift cover-up. Infrasound? A phenomenon where wind creates low-frequency sound waves that induce panic, dizziness, and irrational fear. Could the mountain itself have driven them mad? Animal attack? The Mansi people spoke of the Yeti, but no animal tracks were found, and the injuries didn't match predator attacks. Paradoxical undressing? In severe hypothermia, victims sometimes remove their clothing due to confused sensations of heat. This could explain why some bodies were partially undressed, but not why they fled the tent in the first place. The Mansi people? Early suspicions fell on the local indigenous group, but investigators found no evidence of their involvement, and the nature of the injuries ruled out human combat. In 2019, 60 years after the tragedy, Russian authorities reopened the investigation. In 2020, they released a new conclusion. A rare type of avalanche combined with hurricane-force winds caused the hikers to panic and flee. But questions remain. The radiation, the missing tongue and eyes, the tent slashed from within, the sheer terror that drove them into the frozen night. Were they running from something? Or towards safety they never reached? The mountain keeps its secrets. 9 graves mark 9 lies cut short. And the Dyatlov Pass, forever named after the man who led them there, stands as a reminder that some mysteries resist every attempt at solution. Sometimes the wilderness doesn't just claim lives. Sometimes it erases the very truth of what happened. The case may be officially closed, but for those who study it, who walk those slopes, who read those final diary entries, the mystery of Dyatlov Pass remains as frozen and impenetrable as the mountain itself.